Hello and welcome back to another episode of TÂCHES Teaches. I'm Tash, and today I want to show you my new preset, Rhythmique, that will allow you to make cool micro-housey rhythms out of any drum loop, using velocity to control the sample start point. So without further ado, let's jump right in. What this is a step sequencer of sorts that allows you to pick which parts of a loop you want to trigger on each step. It's a bit easier to just explain it with something to look at. So let's take this loop. If I drag this in, automatically we're going to get a pattern that is a lot tighter, a lot more micro-housey. Let's have a quick listen. Bearing in mind, all I'm playing is I've got a single note drawn on this, and that single note will then trigger what we're looking at. So let's have a look. Again, this is what we started with. And okay, so what's happening? Well, each of these steps is triggering a different point. Depending on the value of these knobs, it's triggering a different start point. And the way that this is happening is we have an arpeggiator in here, and each of these knobs controls the velocity on one of these layers. And velocity isn't mapped to volume. Velocity is mapped. Oh, zoom out again. God damn it. Velocity is mapped. If you look here, let's have a look. Velocity is mapped to the sample start point. So if I were to just play one note, we'll just have the kick. As I move, the velocity is what's changing the start point. So if we were to put all of these down to 0, I'll get to these group parts in a sec, but if we were to put them all to 0, so now you see that everything is at 0, the velocity is all the same. We now have, and as I start to change some of these, we're now creating a different pattern by choosing different start points for the loops. So I'll bring these all back down to 0 again. And you'll see that I've noted these as kick, hat, clap. Obviously, clap is where a kick would be, but to create, you probably have a kick under this anyway. We're all back at 0 now. A good practice is if you find a hat that you like. So let's say for example, the hat. That sounds like a good hat. For some reason, these loops, the 100% seems to be quite good for hats a lot of the time. So you'd probably want to have all of the hats be 100. I've then created a knob up here that basically allows you, if I bring these all back down to 0 again, to be able to cycle through all of the hats at once. So 100% that will bring it to the last point there. So this is controlling all 4 at once. But if you did want to then change one of them individually, you still have the option to, if you were to bring these down, but I think it's quite nice to be able to use all of the hats at 100%, or all of the hats moving at the same time. Next up is clap. And you have to sort of like cycle through until you find a bit that you like. But I think that hats, claps, and the kick less so, but the hats and claps are a good one to keep the same. So if I now play through, let's find a clap section that we like. That's quite cool. But let's keep going. Remember 22.5. Oh, there we go. Let's put that. What about 79? 79.5. Cool, so we've now got a hat and a clap. The kick changes steps 1 and 9. So that's a nice thing to have similar as well. And then you've got these buttons up here of week 1, week 2, week 3, and week 4. Week 1 controls the second step and the 10th step. Week 2 controls the 4th, whatever, you see what I mean. So what this means is that you can then move these guys together. So let's try and shuffle something else in. Oh, I like that. Cool, so now we've found something we like. This week 4, I like that sound, but I don't necessarily want that to happen on the same every time. So I could now go in and manually change this. Or I could then turn off some of these steps. So why don't we turn off the kick, and we'll turn off this week 1, and we'll turn off week 2 and that kick. And now let's see what we've got. Sounding great. Now you can change the high pass here. You can also then bring it up in volume if it's a bit too quiet. Turn it down a bit. And there's a minimal amount of decay change. I think the point of this was to make quite tight loops. So if you bring this down, you get really tight sounds. Let's turn all the steps back on again. And longer isn't too long. And you can also then just go in and change some of these manually. Cool, let's try this with another loop now then. So let's search for full drum loop. What about this? Okay, let's try that. And again, what you could do to start with is bring all of them down to 0, or you can just keep working on it from there. So I'd like to find something in there that's a little better for that offbeat hat. Oh. Oh, I like that. And because this loop has a lot of bass in it anyway, you could remove it and just have a top loop, or you can then just create these amazing rolling patterns. And if you didn't want hats, maybe you wanted to have them and I like to keep this closed, and you can just have this open, and it feels like the kind of plugin I always wanted, really. Let's try that with another loop. Let's find... Try that. Well, let's find specifically a hat loop. Okay, let's take this. And bearing in mind this was the loop we started with. What about... This could be good. You can see how you can very easily build quite cool patterns here. What about using just a single sample then? Let's find just a single closed hat. What's quite cool about this is it means that you can make patterns just with one sound. If you shorten this in a bit, Bring these all back down to 0. Very cool. Or let's take a shaker of some sort. How about this? Might be quite nice to turn off the kicks on this, maybe. Okay, now let's go back to a top loop of some sort, and I'm going to show you another cool way that you can use this to have a bit of diversity in the loop that you're creating. So let's use this loop. And let's see what we get out the box. Oh, I've got to turn these guys back on. If you open up the arpeggiator, you can see where you are in the step. So we know that week 4 is the one that's giving us that. We can change that. Cool, so what you can now do is, obviously this is only 16 notes, so that's 1 bar pattern. But if you were to take an instrument selector, there we go, instrument selector, and throw Rhythmique into there, what you can then do is duplicate this and then move down to this layer, make a couple of changes, maybe not to the hats and the claps, but to the weak beats. Let's do another one. So we'll go down to this one, make a few more changes to the weak beats. And let's take one more, and we'll go down to this guy. Oh, I don't think I've actually been editing the other one. Okay, never mind. We'll do this, edit that a bit, and then we'll go down to this one, edit that a bit. So now in theory, all 4 of them will be different. Cool. So now what you can do is, because you know that they're a bar long patterns, just make sure here that the actual pattern is only 1 note. And then you change this, go away. You then change the instrument selector to be round robin, and now you will have the pattern cycle. Now let's bounce that and have a look at that in audio. Now that's just a brilliant way of coming up with top loops. So we've got that bounced to audio. Let's now let's put another loop in. Let's try a drum full and see if there's anything which we can use with a bit of low end in it. Oh, that's horrid. Let's use that. Now it might be quite cool to turn off some of these steps. And it might even be quite cool as well to then maybe filter this a bit. Take a bit of the top end off. So we've made a really cool bass line there already. Let's bounce that to audio. I'm going to delete this EQ and let's turn these steps back on again, see if we can't add another little top loop section. Okay, let's use that. Maybe turn the clap ones off. Maybe the kicks as well. Forgot to name that. Okay, now another cool thing to note is that you will have to do this every time you load a sample in, but if you then put key tracking on, you'll then be able to pitch the sample up and down with where you play the note. So if I were to play this a couple of octaves higher, quite cool playing them down low sometimes as well. Let's put it up a few. Let's make another layer. Again, we'll need to put key tracking back on. Let's make this one a few octaves lower. Really cool. And one last thing is you can also then put bass lines into it. Oh. Where are you? Rhythmique. Let's put bass line. Take that, for example. You can then play with the actual sample length as well to change the spread of the samples. So let's try. Bring the decay up a bit. Let's do the selector as well. Make a few changes to these weak beats. Duplicate it again. Make a few changes to the weak beats again. And now we'll keep it on 3. So that's going to change voices sort of in a polyrhythmic way. So let's have a listen. Anyways, that's my little Rhythmique toy, and I hope you have fun with it. I'm really quite proud of this one. I think it's a lot of fun. It's really great to use, and let me know what you think. I hope you enjoy it. The download link will be in the description. Well, folks, that's all we have time for today, but I do hope that this video has been useful. If you enjoyed it, then please remember to like and smash that subscribe button to keep up to date with all of my future videos. If you'd like to take your support a step further, then consider becoming a patron too. As always, happy Sunday and happy creating.